James Peterson sat in a sterile conference room on his divorce day, signing papers while his wife Rachel laughed into her phone telling someone, "I finally got rid of the loser who lost his job," completely unaware that James owned the entire company where she worked, the same company where she was about to marry his boss, Victor Kane, who had fired him 3 months ago. James, a software engineer who'd spent 15 years building his career while secretly acquiring controlling shares in Datacore Technologies, watched his wife mock him for being unemployed, even though he owned the $2 billion corporation that employed both her and her new fiancé. Rachel flaunted her promotion and her new relationship with Victor right there in the lawyer's office, mocking James's failure while planning her wedding for next month. But neither she nor Victor knew that the mysterious CEO they'd never met, the one who'd been running the company remotely for 5 years, was the man they just destroyed. What happens when a wife mocks her husband on divorce day for losing his job, only to discover he owned the company all along? What did James do when his wife divorced him to marry his boss, unaware he owned the company they work for that would shock them so completely they'd lose everything they thought they'd won? And why would a man watch his own termination, endure public humiliation, and allow his wife to marry the boss who fired him? Unless he was orchestrating something far more devastating than simple revenge. The lawyer's office smelled like expensive leather and broken promises. James Peterson sat across from Rachel, his wife of 12 years, and watched her sign the divorce papers with a flourish that suggested she'd been practicing. Her phone buzzed constantly, Victor no doubt checking if the deed was done. She'd worn her best dress today, the red one James had bought her for their 10th anniversary. She was wearing it for Victor now. "I have to say, James," Rachel said, not looking up from the documents, "I'm actually relieved this is finally over. It's been exhausting being married to someone with no ambition." She glanced at him then, her eyes cold and assessing. 3 months unemployed, and you've barely even looked for work. Victor says you didn't even fight the termination. Just accepted it. That's so typical of you. James said nothing. He signed his portion of the papers carefully, his hand steady. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia Morse, watched the exchange with professional neutrality, but James caught something in her expression. Pity, perhaps, or discomfort at Rachel's cruelty. "Victor's taking me to the Maldives next week," Rachel continued, examining her fresh manicure. "First class. He says I deserve to be treated well after putting up with your mediocrity for so long. His promotion to chief operating officer came with a huge raise. We're looking at houses in Westchester." "Congratulations," James said quietly. Rachel laughed, sharp and cutting. "You're not even going to fight? Not going to tell me I'm making a mistake? God, James, you're so passive. No wonder Datacore let you go. They probably couldn't even remember you were there." The irony was so profound, James almost smiled. Datacore hadn't let him go. Datacore couldn't let him go because Datacore was his. He'd created it 15 years ago in his college apartment, built it from code and vision and sleepless nights. He'd grown it strategically, carefully, watching it expand while maintaining absolute anonymity as CEO. The public face of Datacore was a board of directors. The real power was James, operating through encrypted communications and remote management, protecting his privacy and his creation. He'd met Rachel after Datacore's initial success, when he'd deliberately taken a position as a senior software engineer in his own company. A test, his mentor had called it. His mentor, Thomas Chen, had built and sold 3 companies before dying last year and leaving James a detailed letter about the corrupting influence of visible wealth. Thomas had warned him, "Keep your power hidden and see who people really are." James had followed that advice. He'd lived modestly, worked his engineering position, and married Rachel when she was a junior marketing associate, believing she loved him for who he was, not what he had. For 12 years, he'd maintained the fiction, watching and hoping she'd prove Thomas wrong. She hadn't. The change had started 18 months ago when Victor Kane joined Datacore as vice president of operations. Victor was everything James pretended not to be. Flashy, aggressive, charismatic. He wore expensive suits and drove a Tesla and talked constantly about disruption and market domination. Rachel had been dazzled immediately. James had watched his wife fall in love with Victor in slow motion. The late-night work meetings, the new interest in her appearance, the way she started comparing James to other men, always finding him lacking, the contempt that crept into her voice when she talked about his little engineering job, while Victor actually led people. 3 months ago, James had orchestrated his own termination. He'd instructed the board through his usual encrypted channels to eliminate his engineering position and have Victor deliver the news. He'd wanted to see how Rachel would react. He'd hoped, foolishly, he knew now, that she'd show compassion, solidarity, love. Instead, she'd moved out within a week, filed for divorce within 2, started openly dating Victor within 3. "All done," Patricia said, collecting the signed documents. "The divorce will be finalized in 30 days. Mr. Peterson, you're entitled to—" "I don't want anything," James said. "She can have the house, the cars, everything we bought together." Rachel's smile was triumphant. "How generous, though I suppose you couldn't afford to keep any of it anyway." She stood, smoothing her dress. "Victor's waiting outside. He's taking me to lunch at Per Se. You know, the place you always said was too expensive?" She picked up her Birkin bag, a gift from Victor. "I hope you land on your feet, James. Maybe you can find something at a startup or whatever. Just try to show more initiative this time." She left without looking back. Through the window, James watched her slide into Victor's Tesla, watched Victor kiss her like he'd won something valuable. They drove away toward their expensive lunch, their new life, their perfect future built on the ruins of James's humiliation. Patricia cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Peterson, are you certain about the settlement?" "You're entitled to—" "I'm certain," James said. He stood, straightening his modest jacket. "Thank you for your help, Patricia." "I'm sorry," she said quietly. She was very cruel." "She was honest," James replied. "That's actually more valuable." He left the office and walked 6 blocks to a different building. This one sleek and modern, with Datacorp's logo etched in glass across the entrance. Security nodded as he passed. They knew him as a former employee, nothing more. He took the elevator to the top floor, to the executive suite that officially belonged to the board of directors, but actually contained his private office, accessible only through biometric security that recognized him alone. Inside, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. James stood at the glass, looking down at the streets where Rachel and Victor were probably toasting their future right now, completely unaware that they were celebrating in his city, in his world, on his board. His computer chimed, an encrypted message from Margaret Santos, Datacorp's public-facing CEO, and the only person who knew James's true identity. "Divorce finalized?" "Yes," James typed back. "How do you feel?" James thought about that. How did he feel? Not angry, surprisingly. Not bitter, just clear. Thomas had been right. Hidden power revealed character. Rachel had shown hers perfectly. "Free," he typed. "What's the status on the Kane situation?" Margaret's response came quickly. "Victor has been pushing for the merger with Tech Venture. Very aggressive about it. He's positioning himself as a visionary. The board is divided. He's asking for emergency meeting next week to force a vote." James smiled slightly. The merger with Tech Venture was Victor's pet project, his play for more power and prestige. It was also a terrible idea. Tech Venture was overvalued and poorly managed. Their tech was outdated, and the merger would cost Datacorp billions while providing nothing of real value. But Victor saw it as his legacy play, the move that would make him legendary in the industry. "Let him call the meeting," James typed. "I'll attend." There was a pause. Then, "You're going to reveal yourself?" "Not exactly. I have a better idea." James spent the next 2 hours reviewing Datacorp's financials, competitive position, and strategic opportunities. The company he'd built was worth $2.3 billion now, employed 4,000 people across 6 countries, and dominated 3 major technology sectors. It was profitable, innovative, and positioned for long-term sustainable growth, unless Victor's merger went through. Then it would be shackled to a dying company, drained of resources and vulnerable to competitors. James had options. He could reveal himself immediately, fire Victor, and prevent the merger with a single command. He could punish Rachel by eliminating her marketing position. He could destroy them both publicly and decisively. But Thomas's voice echoed in his memory, words from that final letter. The truly powerful don't need to prove it. They simply operate from a position of truth and let consequences flow naturally. Don't be cruel, James. Be just. There's a difference. James pulled up Victor's personnel file. The man had talent, no denying that. He was an effective operator, good at execution, skilled at motivation, but he lacked vision, mistook aggression for leadership, and couldn't distinguish between genuine opportunity and flashy distraction. He was exactly the kind of executive who could damage a company badly while believing he was saving it. And Rachel. James pulled up her file too. She'd been a decent marketing associate once, creative and hardworking, but her recent promotion to senior marketing director, approved by Victor, not the board, had gone to her head. Her performance reviews showed declining quality, increasing office politics, and a tendency to take credit for others' work. She was becoming exactly like Victor, more interested in perception than substance. James made notes, developed a strategy. He wouldn't destroy them. He'd give them exactly what they wanted and let the natural consequences unfold. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey James, it's Mike Chen from college. Heard you're between jobs. My startup is looking for senior engineers. Interested in grabbing coffee? Mike Chen, Thomas's nephew, another person who knew James's secret. James smiled. Mike was building something interesting in the biotech space. Something meaningful. Coffee sounds great, James texted back, but I should warn you, I might be too busy soon. Found something? Something found me. James looked out at the city again. Somewhere down there, Rachel and Victor were planning their wedding, their future, their triumphant rise. They thought they'd escaped James's mediocrity and latched onto something better. They had no idea they'd never left his world at all. The week passed in careful observation. James maintained his fiction as an unemployed engineer, living in a modest apartment he'd rented after Rachel took the house. He spent his days in coffee shops with his laptop, looking every bit the struggling job seeker. He spent his nights in his private office, running data core and watching Victor and Rachel navigate their new life. Rachel posted constantly on social media, photos of expensive dinners, designer purchases, Victor's Tesla, the Westchester house they were viewing. Every post was a performance, proof of upgrade, evidence that she'd traded up from her mediocre ex-husband to a real man with real success. Victor was more strategic but no less transparent. He positioned himself in industry publications, gave interviews about innovative leadership, and leaked rumors about the tech venture merger as if it were already approved. He was building narrative, creating momentum, trying to force the board's hand through public pressure. Margaret sent daily updates. Victor's pushing hard. Some board members are wavering. He's convincing. You should see his presentation. Lots of charts showing projected synergies and market domination. It looks good if you don't examine the underlying assumptions. James examined the underlying assumptions. They were fantasy. Tech Venture's valuation was based on projected growth that hadn't materialized in 5 years. Their patents were expiring. Their talent was leaving. Their technology was 2 generations behind data cores. The merger would be disaster dressed as opportunity. Let him present, James instructed. Full board meeting. Make sure everyone attends. He prepared his own analysis, drilling into every number, every assumption, every risk Victor was glossing over. The truth was damning. Victor wasn't stupid. He was dazzled. He'd fallen in love with the idea of being the man who completed a multi-billion-dollar merger, and he'd stopped doing the work of questioning whether it made sense. On Thursday, James went to Rachel's new apartment, the luxury high-rise Victor was paying for. She'd asked him to pick up the last of his belongings, things she'd forgotten to pack. He arrived at noon, when he knew she'd be at work. Except she wasn't at work. She was there, in the apartment, with Victor. James heard them through the door before he knocked. The wedding has to be perfect, Rachel was saying. Everyone from DataCore needs to see that I'm with you now, that I'm not associated with James anymore. Baby, they all know, Victor's voice smooth and confident. Trust me, Nobody even remembers James worked there. He was invisible. You're with a real leader now. I just can't believe I wasted 12 years on him. 12 years of watching him be satisfied with mediocrity. You're so different. You actually want something. I want everything, Victor said, and I'm going to get it. This tech venture merger is going to change everything. I'll be the youngest COO to complete a deal this size. We're talking book deals, speaking tours, real influence. What if the board votes against it? They won't. I've been working them individually. The mysterious CEO never shows up to meetings anyway. Probably doesn't even understand the business anymore. The board will approve it. We'll complete the merger, and I'll be untouchable. James knocked. The conversation stopped abruptly. Rachel opened the door, her face shifting from surprise to annoyance. James, you're early. You said noon. He kept his voice neutral, his posture non-threatening. The unemployed ex-husband collecting his things. Victor appeared behind her, proprietary hand on her shoulder. Peterson, how's the job hunt? Ongoing, James said. I might have something for you, actually. My buddy runs a small consulting firm. Nothing glamorous, but it's work. Want me to make a call? The condescension was so thick James could almost touch it. Victor was offering him charity, proving his superiority, demonstrating to Rachel that he was the bigger man. That's kind of you, James said, but I'm working on some things. Sure, well, offer stands. Victor checked his watch, expensive and obvious. Babe, we should get going. The caterer's waiting. Right. Rachel grabbed her purse. Your stuff is in the bedroom, James. Just leave the key when you go. They left together, Victor's hand possessive on Rachel's back. James watched them go, then entered the apartment. His belongings, books, photos, personal items, were boxed carelessly in the bedroom, things Rachel couldn't be bothered to keep or throw away. James found what he'd actually come for, a photo album from their wedding. He flipped through it slowly, studying Rachel's face in the pictures. She'd looked happy then. Maybe she had been. Maybe she'd loved him once, before Victor showed her what she thought was better. Or maybe Thomas had been right all along. Some people love the person, others love the package. Rachel had loved the package, and when a better package came along, she'd upgraded without hesitation. James took the photo album and left everything else. He locked the apartment and dropped the key in the mailbox. He had a board meeting to prepare for. The DataCore boardroom was designed to intimidate. Glass walls, modern art, a table that could seat 30 people comfortably. 22 board members sat around it now, each representing significant interests in the company. Margaret Santos sat at the head as the public CEO. Victor Kane sat 3 seats down, his presentation queued up, his confidence visible in every gesture. James sat in the back corner, in a chair reserved for observers and note-takers. He wore a simple suit, carried a tablet, and radiated invisibility. No one looked at him twice. No one questioned his presence. He was furniture. Victor began his presentation with the confidence of someone who'd already won. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to propose the most significant strategic move in DataCore's history. The merger with Tech Venture represents a transformational opportunity to dominate the enterprise software market. He clicked through slides showing market projections, revenue synergies, competitive advantages. The numbers looked impressive if you didn't question them. Several board members nodded along. Tech Venture brings us established relationships in industries we've been trying to penetrate for years, Victor continued. Their client base of Fortune 500 companies gives us immediate credibility and access. The combined entity would have revenues exceeding $4 billion annually. James watched the board's reactions. Some were convinced, others looked skeptical but uncertain. Margaret caught his eye briefly, an unspoken question. James gave the smallest shake of his head. Not yet. Victor moved to his conclusion. The price is steep, $1.2 billion in stock and cash, but the return on investment will be substantial. We're talking about market leadership, about positioning DataCore as an industry titan, about creating something legendary. He paused for effect. I'm recommending we vote to approve this merger today. The opportunity won't wait. Tech Venture has other suitors. We need to move decisively. Margaret spoke first. It's an impressive presentation, Victor, but some of us have concerns about the valuation. Tech Venture's stock price is down 40% over 2 years. Their revenue growth has stalled. Temporary market conditions, Victor countered smoothly. Their fundamentals are solid, and that's exactly why now is the time to acquire them. We're getting them at a discount. Or we're buying a declining asset, said Robert Kim, a venture capitalist with decades of experience. I've reviewed Tech Venture's financials. Their technology is outdated. Their best engineers have left for competitors. Their patents expire within 3 years. What exactly are we buying besides expensive overhead? Victor's smile tightened slightly. With respect, Robert, I think you're being overly cautious. Sometimes you have to take bold action to achieve bold results. Bold action and reckless gambling aren't the same thing, Robert replied. The room divided into debate. Pro-merger board members cited opportunity and growth. Anti-merger members questioned assumptions and risks. Victor worked the room expertly, addressing concerns, building alliances, pushing for a vote. Finally, Margaret raised her hand. I think we need more analysis before voting. This is a billion-dollar decision. We should take our time. With respect, Margaret, Victor said, his tone carefully balanced between deference and challenge. Taking our time means losing the opportunity. Leadership requires conviction. Our CEO, he paused meaningfully. Whoever they are, wherever they are, has been absent from these critical discussions. The board needs to lead. I'm calling for a vote. Several board members murmured agreement. Margaret looked troubled. The vote was going to happen, and it might go Victor's way through sheer momentum and his force of personality. James stood up. The room went quiet. Every head turned. James walked calmly to the front of the room, to the head of the table where Margaret sat. She stood immediately, understanding flooding her expression. Ladies and gentlemen, Margaret said, her voice clear and formal, I'd like to introduce someone. This is James Peterson. He's the founder and majority shareholder of DataCore Technologies. He's also our CEO. The silence was profound. Victor's face went through a remarkable series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, horror. Several board members who knew James as the former engineer looked shocked. Others who'd never met him looked curious. James plugged his tablet into the presentation system. Thank you, Margaret. I apologize for my unorthodox management style. I've preferred to operate remotely to maintain privacy and objectivity. But Mr. Kane is right about one thing. This decision is too important for absence. He pulled up his own presentation. I've reviewed the Tech Venture proposal thoroughly. It's a well-constructed pitch. The slides are beautiful. The narrative is compelling. And the underlying analysis is fundamentally flawed. He clicked to a slide showing Tech Venture's actual versus projected revenue. Victor's projections assume 15% annual growth. Tech Venture hasn't achieved that in 5 years. Here's what they've actually delivered. The numbers told a brutal story: declining growth, increasing costs, eroding margins. Their technology isn't just outdated, it's incompatible with our platform. Integration would cost an additional $300 million and take 18 months minimum. Their patents expire without replacement pipeline. Their talent has been recruited away by competitors who recognize their decline. James pulled up more slides, each one systematically dismantling Victor's case. The board members leaned forward, studying the data. Robert Kim nodded slowly, vindicated. But here's the real issue, James said quietly. This isn't about Tech Venture. It's about what kind of company we are. Are we the kind of company that makes bold moves based on sound analysis and genuine opportunity? Or are we the kind of company that makes flashy moves based on ego and narrative? He looked at Victor for the first time. Mr. Kane, you're a talented executive. You're skilled at execution, motivation, and presentation. But you've fallen in love with a story instead of examining reality. That's dangerous. Victor found his voice finally. I had no idea no one did. That was intentional. James turned back to the board. I'm recommending we reject the Tech Venture merger. Instead, I'm proposing we invest that capital in organic growth, developing our own technology, expanding our teams, building sustainable competitive advantages. It's less glamorous but more effective. Seconded, Robert Kim said immediately. All in favor, Margaret called. 20 hands rose. Victor's wasn't among them. The merger was dead. There's one more matter, James said. Mr. Kane, your termination of James Peterson 3 months ago, the senior software engineer position you eliminated. I'd like to understand your reasoning. Victor's face was pale. We were restructuring. That position was redundant. It was a business decision. Was it, or was it personal? James kept his tone neutral, curious rather than accusatory. Because I've reviewed the circumstances. That engineer was performing well, his projects were successful, his team valued him. The elimination of that position saved approximately $120,000 in annual salary while creating disruption in 3 major projects. What was the business justification? Victor said nothing. I think you eliminated that position because you saw that engineer as unambitious, passive, mediocre. You saw someone who wasn't like you, who didn't seek attention or credit or advancement, and you decided he had no value. Is that accurate? I made a judgment call, Victor said tightly. You made a character assessment based on visibility rather than contribution. That's a leadership failure. James pulled up another document. I'm reinstating the senior software engineer position, effective immediately. The role is essential. Your judgment was flawed. He paused. I'm also restructuring the COO responsibilities. You'll be transitioning to a VP role focused on operations execution, your actual strength. The strategic planning components of your current role will be distributed to people with more appropriate skills. It was a demotion, publicly delivered, but framed as organizational optimization. Victor's face went from pale to flushed. You can't. I've built relationships, created momentum, positioned this company. You've been very busy, James agreed. But busy and effective aren't the same thing. This isn't punishment, Victor. It's honesty. You're good at certain things. Strategy isn't one of them. Accept the role or resign, your choice. The room was silent. Victor looked around seeking support, finding none. Finally, he stood. I resign. He walked out without another word, his designer shoes loud on the floor. After he left, James addressed the board. I apologize for the drama. I'll be taking a more active role going forward. Not daily operations, but strategic oversight. Margaret will continue as operational CEO. I'll be available for major decisions and board meetings. Any questions? Just one, Robert Kim said, smiling slightly. How long have you been running this company in secret? Since I founded it 15 years ago, I wanted to build something real without the distortion that comes from visible wealth and power. It worked mostly, though I learned some uncomfortable truths along the way. Like what? Asked another board member. Like the difference between people who value competence and people who value performance, between substance and style, between building things and building images. James smiled slightly. Painful lessons, but valuable ones. The meeting adjourned. Board members approached James, some curious, some congratulatory, all respectful. Margaret waited until they left. That was kinder than he deserved, she said. He's not a bad person. He's just confused about what matters. Maybe this will teach him. James gathered his materials. How's Rachel taking it? She doesn't know yet. She's in a meeting with clients, but word is spreading fast. Good. She'll hear it naturally then. James left the building through the back exit, avoiding attention. His phone buzzed with messages, board members wanting to connect, employees hearing rumors, journalists somehow already pursuing the story. He ignored them all. He went to his modest apartment, made coffee, and sat by the window. His laptop chimed with a video call request. Mike Chen. So, Mike said when James accepted, I'm hearing insane rumors that you're the mysterious DataCore CEO. Please tell me that's true because it's the best thing I've heard all year. It's true, Mike laughed, delighted. Oh man, Uncle Thomas would be so proud. You actually did it. You built an empire in secret and nobody knew. That's legendary. It was necessary. Your uncle taught me that visible power corrupts perception. People treat you differently when they know what you have. Speaking of which, Rachel and Victor? Learning that lesson right now, I imagine. Are you going to fire her? James considered. No, she'll quit on her own. She can't face working at a company I own, reporting to people I hired, succeeding or failing under my watch. Her ego won't allow it. That's cold, man. That's natural consequences. She wanted to escape my mediocrity. Now she knows there was no mediocrity to escape. The cognitive dissonance will eat at her. She'll leave. And Victor? Resigned already. He chose ego over adaptation. That's his journey to figure out. Mike was quiet for a moment. So what now? You've been revealed. Your secret's out. Everything changes. Some things change, others don't. James sipped his coffee. I'm still the same person I was yesterday. I just don't have to pretend anymore. That's freeing, actually. You're not going to go public? Do the billionaire thing? Buy a yacht? God, no. I'm going to do exactly what I've been doing. Build good technology, help good people, live deliberately. The only difference is I won't hide anymore. They talked for another hour about Mike's biotech startup, potential collaborations, Thomas's legacy. When they hung up, James felt settled, clear, the same feeling he'd had after signing the divorce papers, only deeper now. His phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. I can't believe you humiliated Victor like that. You destroyed everything we built. I hope you're satisfied. Rachel, he didn't reply. There was nothing to say. She'd build what she built with Victor. He'd simply revealed what it was actually made of. Another text. Everyone at work is talking about it. I can't show my face. You did this on purpose. Actually, he hadn't. He'd done what was right for the company. The fact that it affected her was incidental, not intentional. But she'd never understand that. To Rachel, everything was personal. Everything was performance. Everything was about social positioning. James blocked the number. He didn't need her anger or her justifications. He'd learned everything he needed to learn about her character. The rest was just noise. He opened his laptop and pulled up DataCore's strategic plan. There was work to do. Real work. Meaningful work. He'd neglected too much while maintaining his fiction. Now he could focus on what actually mattered. Building technology that helped people, creating jobs that paid fairly, developing talent that deserved development. Thomas had been right. Hidden power revealed character, but revealed power created responsibility. James had both now. The question was what he'd do with them. He started making notes, sketching ideas, planning initiatives. The apartment was modest, the coffee was cheap, the laptop was 4 years old. None of that mattered. He was building something real. That was enough. Rachel quit DataCore 6 days later via email, citing hostile work environment and irreconcilable differences with leadership. Her resignation letter was bitter and accusatory, claiming James had orchestrated everything to humiliate her, that he'd hidden his identity to trap her, that his behavior was manipulative and cruel. Margaret forwarded it to James with a simple note. She doesn't understand that she did this to herself. James didn't respond to Rachel's letter. He approved her resignation, authorized her final paycheck and benefits, and moved on. Let her believe what she needed to believe. He knew the truth. He'd given her 12 years of genuine partnership, and she'd chosen to see it as mediocrity because it didn't come wrapped in flashy packaging. Victor landed at a smaller tech company within 2 weeks, with a lesser title and lower salary. He gave an interview to TechCrunch describing his departure from DataCore as mutual agreement to pursue new directions and positioning himself as an innovative leader looking for more entrepreneurial environments. The comments section was brutal. People who'd researched the story knew exactly what had happened. James read the interview once, felt nothing, and deleted the bookmark. He focused on DataCore instead. He brought back the senior engineering position, his old position, and offered it to someone young and talented who reminded him of himself 15 years ago. A woman named Lisa Tran who coded brilliantly but hated office politics and just wanted to build great software. She accepted gratefully. James restructured the marketing department, promoting people based on actual performance rather than visibility. Several of Rachel's recent hires, people she'd brought in because they flattered her, were let go. The department became leaner and more effective. He established new policies around transparency and promotion, making it harder for people like Victor to rise through performance theater rather than genuine contribution. The changes were subtle but significant. DataCore began operating more honestly. Margaret noticed. You're building the company you always wanted but couldn't create while hiding. I'm building the company Thomas taught me to want. One where people succeed based on what they contribute, not what they appear to contribute. That's idealistic. It's functional. Appearances don't ship products or serve customers. Competence does. 3 months after the board meeting, DataCore announced its best quarter in company history. Revenue up 22%, customer satisfaction at all-time highs, employee retention improved dramatically. Industry publications credited new leadership direction under the formerly anonymous founder. James gave exactly one interview to a journalist who promised to focus on business philosophy rather than personal drama. He talked about the value of substance over style, the importance of hiding ego to see truth, the power of building things that mattered rather than things that impressed. The journalist asked about Rachel and Victor. James declined to comment on personal matters. But you must feel some satisfaction, the journalist pressed. They betrayed you and then discovered you had all the power. That's the ultimate revenge story. It's not a revenge story, James said carefully. It's a clarity story. They showed me who they were when they thought I had nothing. That information was valuable. What I did with it afterward, building a better company, making better decisions, focusing on what actually mattered, that wasn't revenge. That was just good business. But they lost everything they thought they'd won. They lost the illusion they'd been chasing. Maybe that's valuable for them too. Maybe they'll learn something about what actually matters. Do you believe that? I hope that. Whether I believe it depends on what they do next. The interview ran with the headline, "The CEO Who Hid in Plain Sight, a story about character, not revenge." It went viral. James got offers for book deals, speaking engagements, consulting opportunities. He declined all of them. He did accept Mike Chen's invitation to join his biotech startup's advisory board. The technology was promising, the mission was meaningful, and Mike reminded James why he'd gone into tech in the first place, to solve problems, not to win games. 4 months after the divorce was finalized, James received an email from Rachel. Subject line, "I'm sorry." He almost deleted it unread, but curiosity won. He opened it. "James, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't have the right to ask for your attention, but I need to say this. I'm sorry I was cruel to you. I mocked you when you were vulnerable. I left you for someone I thought was better, and I was wrong about what better means. Victor and I broke up. Turns out he's not great at handling failure, and once he wasn't COO anymore, he became bitter and small. I saw who he really was without the title and prestige. Just like you saw who I really was, I guess. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. You were steady, kind, genuine. You built something real while I was chasing something shiny. I'm sorry I couldn't see it then. I see it now. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be." Rachel James read it twice. He felt something, but not what he'd expected. Not satisfaction or vindication. Just a quiet sadness for time wasted, for lessons learned the hard way, for people who couldn't see value until it was gone. He wrote back, "Rachel, I appreciate the apology. I hope you find what you're looking for, and I hope you learn to value substance over appearance. That's the only advice I have. Take care of yourself." James. He didn't hear from her again. A year after the divorce, James attended a tech industry gala supporting computer science education for underserved communities. DataCore was a major sponsor. James went reluctantly. He hated these events, the performative charity, the networking disguised as philanthropy. But the cause was real, and Margaret convinced him that his presence mattered. He wore a simple suit, arrived late, and positioned himself near the back of the ballroom. He planned to make his donation, listen to a few speeches, and leave early. Then he saw her, not Rachel, someone new. A woman standing alone near the windows, studying the city view with intensity that suggested she was deliberately avoiding the crowd. She wore a simple black dress that looked thoughtful rather than expensive. She held a glass of water, not wine. She looked like she wanted to be anywhere but here. James recognized the feeling immediately. He walked over, surprising himself. The view's the best part of these events. She glanced at him, assessed him quickly, and decided he wasn't a threat. Only part worth attending for, honestly. You don't like charity galas? I like the charity. The gala part feels like theater. Everyone performing generosity instead of just being generous. She paused. Sorry, that sounded cynical. I work for the nonprofit. I should probably be more enthusiastic about people donating. You work for the Education Foundation? I run it. I'm Nina Okafor. I'm the director who has to smile while wealthy people congratulate themselves for writing checks. She caught herself. And now I'm definitely saying things I shouldn't say to potential donors. Are you press? Worse. I'm a donor. James extended his hand. James Peterson, Datacore Technologies. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh, you're the mysterious CEO everyone talks about. The one who ran $1 billion company in secret. That's me. Then I definitely shouldn't have said any of that. But she was smiling now, genuine amusement rather than networking performance. I appreciated the honesty. You're right about these events. They are theater, but the cause is real. It is. We're putting computer science labs in 20 schools this year, teaching kids who've never had access to this kind of education, giving them opportunities they'd never have otherwise. That part matters. Everything else is just funding mechanism. Exactly. She studied him more carefully. You actually get it. Most donors want to talk about their impact, their vision, their involvement. You're talking about the kids. The kids are the point. Everything else is logistics. They talked for an hour about education, technology, access, opportunity. Nina was sharp, passionate, and completely unimpressed by wealth or status. She cared about outcomes, not optics. She measured success in students taught, not donors impressed. James found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did at these events. Nina didn't perform. She didn't flatter. She challenged his assumptions, questioned his ideas, and treated him like a person rather than a checkbook. When the speeches started, they stayed by the windows, half listening to executives congratulate themselves for caring. This is the part I hate most, Nina whispered, the self-congratulation. Just donate and go home. Why do they need applause for basic decency? Because they're performing for each other, not for the cause. It's social signaling. You're remarkably cynical for a billionaire philanthropist. I'm remarkably honest for a billionaire philanthropist. There's a difference. She laughed, quiet and genuine. I like you, James Peterson. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more like, well, like most of the people here. Polished, performative, measuring worth in visibility. You seem like you'd rather be invisible. I spent 15 years invisible. It was clarifying. That's the story everyone wants to know about. Why hide? Why run a company in secret? To see what people were really like when they thought I had nothing. To build something based on substance rather than image. To protect myself from the corruption that comes with visible power. Did it work? James thought about Rachel, about Victor, about Thomas's warnings and wisdom. Yes, painfully, but yes. And now that you're visible, now I'm trying to use that visibility for things that matter, like computer science education for underserved kids. Nina smiled. Smooth transition back to the cause. You're good at this. I'm really not. I hate these events, but I like what you're building. I'd like to help more substantially than just sponsorship. What did you have in mind? I'd like to endow a scholarship fund, full ride for 10 students per year to study computer science. Doesn't matter where they come from or what their circumstances are, just raw talent and genuine interest. Can your organization manage that? Nina's professional composure cracked slightly. Yes, absolutely. That would be transformative. How large of an endowment are we talking about? 20 million, managed to fund in perpetuity, 10 full scholarships per year, forever. She stared at him. James, that's extraordinary. That's why. Because I got lucky. Someone believed in me when I was young. Someone gave me opportunities I couldn't have created myself. I want to be that person for others, and I think you know how to find the students who deserve it. Nina's eyes were suspiciously bright. This is why you do it. The hiding, the mystery, the avoiding attention. You actually mean it. You're not performing generosity, you're just generous. I'm just trying to build something meaningful. Money is just a tool. They talk logistics, structure, selection criteria. Nina was brilliant at operational details, thinking through implementation challenges James hadn't considered. They exchanged numbers, agreed to meet the following week to finalize the structure. As the gala wound down, Nina touched his arm gently. Thank you, not just for the donation, though obviously that's incredible. Thank you for being real, for not performing, for seeing past the theater to what actually matters. Thank you for building something worth supporting, for measuring success in students instead of donors, for being cynical in exactly the right ways. She laughed. We're going to work well together. James watched her rejoin her team, energy and purpose in every gesture. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, not the satisfaction of revenge or validation, but the simple pleasure of connecting with someone genuine. His phone buzzed. Margaret, I saw you talking to Nina Okafor for an hour. That's the longest I've ever seen you engage at one of these events. She seems remarkable. She is, James texted back. We're setting up a scholarship fund. 20 million endowment. That's generous, also transparent. I know what you're doing. What am I doing? Building something real with someone real. It's nice to see. You deserve that. James smiled and pocketed his phone. He left the gala early, as planned, but for the first time in memory, he didn't feel like he'd wasted his evening. He'd found something worth building, someone worth knowing. Not to replace what he'd lost, Rachel had taught him that chapter was finished, but to build something new, something better, something based on substance rather than appearance. Thomas would be proud. 18 months after the divorce, James received an invitation in the mail. Heavy cardstock, expensive printing, elegant script. It was a wedding invitation. Victor Kane and someone named Melissa Bradford were getting married. James almost threw it away. Then he saw the note at the bottom, handwritten. James, I know this is awkward, but I wanted to invite you because I owe you an apology, and I wanted to deliver it in person. No hard feelings if you don't come, but I hope you will. Victor James sat with the invitation for a long time. He'd thought about Victor occasionally over the past year and a half. Wondered if the man had learned anything, grown at all, or just found another performance to give. He decided to find out. He RSVP'd yes. The wedding was smaller than Victor's style suggested, maybe 80 guests, a boutique hotel in Connecticut. Understated elegance. James arrived alone. Nina was traveling for the foundation, and besides, this felt like something he needed to do himself. Victor spotted him immediately. He excused himself from greeting other guests and approached with visible nervousness. James, you came. I wasn't sure you would. Your note was genuine, or seemed to be. It is. Victor gestured toward the terrace. Can we talk? Before the ceremony? They walked outside. The venue overlooked gardens beginning to bloom with spring flowers. Victor stood at the railing, gathering himself. I was an ass, he said finally, to you at Datacorp in general. I was so focused on looking successful that I forgot to actually be successful. I built image instead of substance. You showed me that. Brutally, but necessarily. I wasn't trying to teach you a lesson. I know. That's what made it effective. You were just running your company properly, making good decisions. The fact that it destroyed the illusion I'd built, that was on me, not you. What happened after you left? I failed, dramatically. The company I joined fired me after 6 months when they realized I was all presentation and no execution. Then I had a breakdown. Then I had therapy. A lot of therapy. Victor smiled slightly. Turns out I've been performing my entire life, always chasing external validation, never building internal worth. Classic insecurity masked as confidence. And now? Now I'm a VP at a nonprofit supporting military veterans transitioning to civilian careers. Smaller title, smaller salary, bigger purpose. I help people who actually need help instead of pretending to be important. It's better. I'm better. James studied him. The flashiness was gone. The aggressive confidence had been replaced with something quieter, more solid. Victor seemed uncomfortable in his own skin, but in a productive way. like someone actively growing rather than performing growth. I'm glad you found something meaningful. Melissa helped. She's a social worker. She doesn't care about titles or money or any of the things I used to think mattered. She cares about impact. She keeps me honest. Victor paused. Rachel reached out to me about 6 months ago. Wanted to reconnect. I said no. Why? Because I recognized the pattern. She was lonely, I was available, and she doesn't actually want me. She wants the idea of me, or the idea of herself with me. I learned that from you, from watching what happened between you and her. She never saw you, just saw what she thought you represented. That's perceptive. Therapy and failure are clarifying. Victor looked at James directly. I fired you because you made me feel inadequate. You were comfortable being quiet, being competent without being visible. That threatened my entire identity, which was built on visibility. So I eliminated you. It was insecure and wrong, and I'm sorry. The apology was simple, direct, and genuine. James felt something release in his chest. I accept your apology, and I'm sorry I let it play out the way I did. I could have revealed myself earlier, prevented the board meeting drama. I chose to let you fail publicly. That was cruel. There's a difference. I needed to fail publicly. I needed the embarrassment. It's the only thing that broke through my ego enough for me to get help. Victor smiled. We taught each other things. You taught me about substance. I taught you about the cost of secrecy. We're even. They shook hands. It felt like closure. The ceremony was small and personal. Melissa was warm, funny, and clearly in love with Victor in a way that seemed grounded and real. Victor was nervous and genuine, his vows focused on growth, honesty, and building something sustainable rather than something impressive. James stayed for the reception. He talked to other guests, danced with Melissa's aunt, and watched Victor navigate his wedding with visible happiness that didn't look like performance. Toward the end of the evening, Victor found him again. Thank you for coming. It means a lot. You didn't have to. You invited me honestly. That deserved a response. Are you happy, James? Really? James thought about it. Thought about Data Corps thriving under honest leadership. Thought about the scholarship fund sending its first students to college. Thought about Nina and the way she challenged him to think bigger about impact. Thought about this conversation, this moment of genuine reconciliation. Yes, he said. I'm happy. Are you? Getting there. Finally. Victor smiled. I heard about the scholarship fund. That's what you do with money when you're not performing with it. That's real impact. It's what Thomas taught me. Money is responsibility, not identity. Smart man. He was. They parted with mutual respect. James left as the reception wound down, driving back to the city with a sense of completion he hadn't expected. His phone buzzed. Nina. How was the wedding? Surprisingly good. Victor's grown up. It's nice to see. You're a better person than I'd be. I would not go to my ex's wedding. It wasn't my ex. It was someone who showed me who they were and then learned from it. That deserves acknowledgement. You're also more philosophical than I'd be. I'd still be mad. I was mad for a while. But staying mad would mean they still had power over me. This way, I'm free, healthy and mature. Also slightly annoying. I prefer my grudges. James laughed. How's the site visit? Amazing. The kids are incredible. One of them is already coding better than I did at her age. The scholarship program is going to change lives, James. Thank you for making it possible. Thank you for running it properly. I just provided resources. You're creating opportunity. We're a good team. We are. James arrived home to his apartment, still modest, still deliberate. He could afford anything now that his identity was public. He could buy mansions, collect cars, perform wealth the way Victor used to. But Thomas's voice echoed, character is what you do when nobody's watching. James was still building character, still choosing substance over appearance, still measuring success and impact rather than impressions. His laptop was open on the table. Data Corps' quarterly report displayed. Strong numbers, happy employees, meaningful products. The company he'd built in secret was thriving in transparency. He opened another window, the Scholarship Foundation's application portal. Hundreds of applications from talented students who just needed a chance. Nina's team was reviewing them, finding the diamonds in rough circumstances. James read through some of the essays. Kids who'd taught themselves coding on library computers. Students who'd built apps to solve problems in their communities. Teenagers who saw technology as opportunity rather than entertainment. This was what Thomas meant. This was the point of having resources, not to prove worth, but to create opportunity. Not to build monuments to yourself, but to build pathways for others. James made notes for the foundation board meeting, expanded the scholarship program to 20 students per year, increased support services, added mentorship components. His phone buzzed again. Nina, stop working. It's 11 p.m. How did you know I was working? Because I know you. Because I'm working too. Because we're both bad at work-life balance. Fair point. What are you working on? Proposal to expand the program to 3 more states. Want to review it tomorrow over coffee? Yes. My office, 10 a.m. It's a date. And by date, I mean professional meeting about educational access, obviously. Though if it accidentally turned into an actual date, I wouldn't object. James stared at the message, surprised and pleased. He and Nina had been working together for months, building the foundation, sharing meals, talking about everything from code to philosophy. Somewhere in that collaboration, friendship had deepened into something more. I wouldn't object either, he typed back. Coffee at 10, date at 7? Perfect. Wear something nice. Not billionaire nice, just you nice. You nice is my only setting, I know. It's one of my favorite things about you. James set down his phone, smiling. He thought about Rachel, about how she'd measured worth in appearance and possessions. He thought about Victor, about how he'd built identity on performance and validation. He thought about his own journey from hiding to revelation, from bitterness to grace. Thomas had been right about everything. Hidden power revealed character. Visible power created responsibility. The trick was staying true to yourself regardless of who was watching or what they thought they knew. James looked around his modest apartment, at the life he'd built deliberately and honestly. No mansion, no luxury car, no performance of wealth. Just a simple space where he could think and work and be himself. He was happy, really happy. Not because of revenge or validation or proving anything to anyone. Happy because he'd built something real, helped people who deserved help, and found connection with someone who valued substance over appearance. That was enough, more than enough. Tomorrow he'd have coffee with Nina, review her proposal, and maybe take her to dinner somewhere quiet where they could talk about everything that mattered and nothing that didn't. He'd keep building DataCore into something meaningful. Keep funding scholarships for deserving students. Keep living deliberately and honestly. He'd be himself, wealthy or not, visible or hidden, validated or criticized. Because character wasn't what you performed. It was what you built when nobody was watching and what you maintained when everyone was. Thomas would be proud. James was proud. And that finally was all that mattered.